Good afternoon, guys. Today we're talking about a game I did not expect to be playing in 2025. A game I hadn't heard of until the hype started. So what I did was decide to jump on the bandwagon. And actually, I'm so glad I did. Clair Obscur has been a pretty interesting game from start to finish, and I haven't finished it yet. By finish, I mean the end of Act 2, where everything kind of changes a bit. Now, I'm not going to go into too much details about the story itself, right now at least, maybe towards the end, but I'll tell you if spoilers are coming. But the game itself so far has been absolutely immense. I didn't really understand what was going on with the name Clair Obscur. I didn't understand what that meant, so I decided to kind of do my own research. Clair Obscur is an artistic technique which contrasts light with dark, essentially ray tracing on paper, which is ironic because I'm going to talk to you about the graphics right now. The graphics for this game are very, very good. I wouldn't say they're the best graphics I've ever seen, but I would say they're comparable to games such as Black Myth Wukong, probably a tier below Indiana Jones, but honestly at this level the differences are so minuscule it doesn't matter. The game is beautiful, the art is lovely, and actually a lot of what I like about this game can be summarized in the fact that a lot of the weapons have this glow, this ethereal glow. You can see on the screen right now I'm fighting this kind of dual wielding demon. And actually his weapons look amazing, and even some of the motion blur effects that go with the weapons are well thought out, and I'm pretty sure all of that motion blur does help optimization. So yeah, the environment and the settings themselves feel amazing. Everything is surreal, aesthetic, and it does feel like to some extent that you're living in some sort of art realm, and that is lovely. The characters, I was quite impressed that all of the characters were kind of normal looking people, no goofy characters. The one or two characters that you kind of, the one or two main characters that you kind of meet that aren't human beings have an interesting design. The game itself visually is unique, and it looks very Eastern. I don't know why, although it has French themes and French vibes, there's something very Eastern in its aesthetic, and I think that's because of the JRPG Final Fantasy vibes that you get from this game, and that is something else that I find quite interesting. Now, I will say, when you're playing this game, don't kind of use your biases against it. It's a game that has its own style and its own way of doing things, and if you're not somebody used to these sort of games, you might be put off a bit, but actually I'd say give it a go. The strongest part of this game, I'd say, is the first 10 to 15 hours. That is where the game really shows how good it is, and you'll probably keep playing after that because the story is quite compelling, which I'll talk about later. But in terms of art style and cutscenes, there is absolutely nothing to say that's negative. I think the character models are probably some of the best in the business. Honestly, like the facial expressions and some of the ways the characters look, it looks photorealistic at times. And I'm running the PC version of the game with the high settings possible, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but honestly the way it looks is amazing. I have heard some people playing on PS5 say that it does look a bit blurry at times, but I'm pretty sure that's just an optimization kind of choice. There is some parts of this game which looks like there's a filter over it, but I think that's part of the kind of design choice rather than just, laziness from the developers. But honestly, I'd say for visual and aesthetics, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I don't really think there's anything wrong with it, and I don't really know what they could improve at this level. I think all of the improvements would probably be, null and void, especially the style of game it is. You don't really need, much better graphics than you have right now, because it isn't one of those games where you're looking at one character's face the entire time and you're walking through environments throughout the whole time. It's a game where it's kind of like a big picture game rather than super detail oriented. You're not picking up things off the floor, this, that, and the other. It's very focused on the epic grand story that it is. Talking about that, let me move on to talking about the gameplay and mechanics before I start rattling on about the story itself. The gameplay is amazing. I really enjoy it. Now, I'm not somebody who's new to turn-based games. I'm a pretty avid follower of the JRPG scene and the turn-based scene as well. I've played quite a few games which are of a similar ilk, games that haven't been given any recognition whatsoever. Games such as Ni no Kuni. If you've ever heard of that game, you're a legend. Now, Ni no Kuni, I wouldn't say it's a similar combat style to this, but these games share that turn-based epic kind of combat vibe, and it almost feels like turn-based games feel like Pokemon but with swords. It's kind of weird. They're very fun, they're very interesting, but unfortunately with turn-based, a lot of times things end up being quite one-dimensional, because essentially once you get to a certain point, a meta kind of solidifies. And I do feel like with this game, there is a few issues with the gameplay which are less to do with the design choices and more to do with probably balancing. I think my personal grievance with this game, which is not a big grievance, it might actually be part of the game's design and might be by choice, is that only one character really feels up for the task to deal damage, and that is Mael. Now you unlock Mael quite early, so I don't feel like talking about her as a spoiler, but essentially she is OP. Like, she is the only character who can really, especially when you're not super high leveled at everything, and especially in Act 3, she's the only character who really deals damage. So yeah, Mael is pretty much kind of the queen of this game, and ironically the story kind of follows that, but Mael is by far the best character, and there's no real it's not even like there's somebody who's a close second. It's like Mael about 3 levels of magnitude below her, and then you get people like Verso and CL and maybe Lune. And I'm sure that if you optimize builds, things can be better, but I wasn't playing the meta game. I kind of just built things how I felt like, outside of a few quick things that I knew that were pretty strong. I didn't sit around spending hours figuring out how to build each character perfectly, because trust me, you probably can. But with Mael, it's just so quick and easy and so plug and play to get her to an overpowered state. I find it almost ridiculous, and the other characters almost feel like dead weight compared to her. Now this might be just because of the way I've played the game, and it might be something I've kind of done without realizing, but yeah, Mael is OP. There's really no way around it. Is that a negative? I don't really know. I think it's quite a shame, because you do want to use your whole team, and you do want team members to be useful in different scenarios. But yeah, like that's just not the case. Mael is just the best. When it comes to abilities, etc., again, with abilities, most abilities, there is a bit of a meta game. Some abilities are just better than others. You can see this when you start off quite early on in Act 2. Some abilities just do damage while others tickle the enemy. So you end up using the abilities that do damage or have effects that are useful. You don't want to be wasting kind of action points on abilities that do absolutely nothing. And that's what happens a lot of the time when you try and be a hero and try and mix things up. So the gameplay, I'd say, is a 7 out of 10 for me. Like, there's a lot of good things, but because I've played quite a few similar games, I will say other games do things better, but other games do things worse as well. I think overall the gameplay is cohesive. I do think there are things to be fixed in terms of you know, balancing everything. I think they probably just need to buff the other characters and make them at the same level. Although Mael is quite overpowered, the other characters I'd say feel underpowered, so it's almost like she becomes a crutch for your whole team, and a lot of times if she dies, the fight is over. And that's especially the case in Act 3, because she pretty much does all the damage. So yeah, that's my grievances around her and how this game's set up around her. Next thing I want to talk about quickly is the story and the tone. Story's amazing. I thought it was interesting. For a video game, doesn't really get much better than that. Can't really complain about the story. Lots of twists and turns. I still haven't completed it all, but I have an understanding of where things are going and the direction it's taking. There's probably more twists and turns coming up, but by the time you get to Act 3, things do start to make sense at the same time they make no sense. But yeah, it's a very interesting story and a very interesting take, and I think it's quite a cohesive theme, and I think everything makes a bit more sense once you play through the first 2 acts. I'm towards the middle end part of Act 3. I haven't really completed the final story mission because I'm grinding a bit out. But yeah, Act 3 is quite good. There is a bit of grinding in it if you want things to be easier. I don't mind over leveling. I don't like doing heroic things because I don't have the time anymore. So I've been kind of leveling up my characters a bit. I don't think I'll complete this game for a while because I'm just a bit busy this week. But yeah, it's been good so far, and I can't really complain. And I am eager to finish the story, but not as eager as I was towards the end of Act 2, because throughout the entire game there's a big rush to beat that one kind of evil godlike boss, and once you beat them, everything just gets a bit more convoluted and confusing. I'd say the story for me is an 8 out of 10. Nothing to kind of complain about too much. I think some things could be a bit more seamless and streamlined, but otherwise absolutely top-notch story. They should be proud of themselves, and I think this game would make an amazing movie. Absolutely amazing. I feel that this game is a hybrid of a video game and a movie because the cut scenes are that damn good. It almost looks live action, honestly. The quality of the cutscenes is amazing, and the quality of the boss fights actually is amazing as well. And the boss fights do kind of add to the story as well when you hear some of the backstories of the bosses. I do like also the random voice notes you pick up throughout the world that tell you about the previous expeditions. I don't listen to all of them, but the ones that I do is quite interesting. Yeah. Next bit, I'll talk about what I think is a true 10 out of 10 part of this game, and that is the music. The music is amazing. Honestly, it's been said by many people and I concur entirely. The music is probably the best music of a video game I've heard in a long time. It's up there with some of the greats for me, such as RuneScape. RuneScape music is goated, don't come at me. It's some of the best music you'll ever hear in a video game, and it gets better and better and better. There are some times where it seems a bit off tune or kind of out of sync with the boss fights and a bit chaotic, but I think that is by design and it's meant to make you feel a bit weird. I think Black Myth Wukong, which is the game I played just before this, had really good music as well, but this game is just a step above. So if Black Myth Wukong's music was like an 8.5, this game's music is a 10 out of 10. I don't really know what they could have done better. Like, it's amazing. I guess maybe one song that was like a chart topping song that kind of collabed with this game, I guess, but that's a bit cringe sometimes. It's kind of good to have music that's made for the game, in the game, and about the game, rather than forcing an artist to make music for a game. But yeah, other than that, absolutely amazing. The pieces of music in this game, honestly, they are probably the strongest part of this game, and they fit the aesthetic really well. There's a sense of sorrow, emptiness, and depression that floats throughout this entire game, especially at the start, and the music captures it perfectly while still keeping you hopeful, which is quite interesting. And I'm not really a big music guy. I play some games muted, I don't really care, but with this game, the music and the sounds are a big part of it. And even some of the boss fights, the only way to parry some of them is to listen to the sound cues and press the parry button when you hear it. So yeah, the sound design of this game is probably the best in the business, and whoever worked on it should be impressed. Now, difficulty, pacing, and all of that, I'd say, and polish and balancing, all of that, as I said, I did complain a bit about it before. I'd say for me, this is, I wouldn't say it's a weakness of the game, because I think it's fine. It's not game breaking, it's not the end of the world, and I think relying on one character is not a big deal. And maybe that's just, maybe it's user error, maybe I've basically set up my team in a way that I rely on Mael a lot. But from what I've heard, most people do agree that Mael is by far the strongest character, and probably the only viable character to deal damage towards the end of the game. And even towards the end of Act 2, you can start to see this occurring. Unfortunately, this for me is definitely a negative, because you do want a bit of variety, and you have 5-6 characters. Why are you only using one to deal damage? And here's me fighting kind of end game grinding bosses, where you're grinding for kind of catalysts or whatever to upgrade your weapons, and Mael just does all the damage. And one of her abilities in particular has been nerfed, but it's still overpowered as hell, and I don't understand why it does so much damage. And I don't understand if that damage is standard, which I don't think it shouldn't be, because actually some of the bosses are really annoying. I don't know why other characters don't have abilities which do similar or close to similar damage. It's a bit of a shame, because Mael is just broken as hell. Now, I will say that because she's so overpowered, I've invested a lot of energy and points and upgrades on her, so it makes it even stronger, because a lot of times in these games, getting your overpowered character even more overpowered is the best way of winning, rather than just having 3 relatively strong characters. But yeah, for me, epic game, can't complain, amazing. You know, overall I'd say it's a 9 out of 10. I will say that it's a shame that games such as Ni no Kuni and other similar turn-based games didn't get a spotlight, but now you have games like this coming through and showing how good this kind of genre will be. And people always compare this game to Persona, so I might try and play that game as well, because I've heard good things about it. Otherwise, peace.